In a world ruled not by kings, but by appetites, discipline becomes the crown of the invisible monarch. You believe freedom is your right, but I tell you this, only the disciplined man is free. The rest are slaves, enslaved not by chains or tyrants, but by their impulses, their moods, and their cowardice. Discipline is the art of dominating the self before the world dominates you. It is the first and final weapon of those who seek power, influence, and mastery. You do not need motivation. You need a code. You do not need inspiration. You need self-legislation. You do not need 100 reasons. You need one unbreakable command. I do what I must, whether I feel like it or not. The weak wait for the perfect conditions, the weather, the mood, the approval of others. The strong create conditions with their will. Do not mistake discipline for rigidity. It is not the act of becoming mechanical. It is the act of becoming sovereign. The undisciplined man is at the mercy of every distraction, every temptation, every whisper from the outside. He is a puppet. The disciplined man is unmoved, not because he lacks emotion, but because he has trained his instincts to serve a higher aim. Discipline does not mean pleasure is forbidden. It means pleasure is delayed until it has been earned. It means desire does not lead, it follows. It means your morning begins not with your craving, but with your conquest. Discipline is the quiet violence you do to yourself daily, so the world cannot violate you loudly later, and the world will try. It will offer you comfort disguised as opportunity, pleasure disguised as purpose, safety disguised as virtue. Say no, do not explain, do not apologize. Your time, your body, your energy, these are your armies, and if you do not command them with iron clarity, they will serve weaker men. The masses will hate your discipline because it reminds them of their surrender. Let them. Your routine will look like madness to them. Let it. The lion's hunger makes sense only to other lions. Build your days like fortresses. Wake early. Guard your inputs. Demand excellence. When you say you will do something, do it. Your word is not a suggestion. It is law. And if you fall, rise. Not slowly, not dramatically. Immediately. You are not a child. You are not a victim. You are not owed anything. Discipline means knowing that no one is coming to save you, and acting accordingly. You want mastery, begin with your morning. You want strength, begin with your thoughts. You want respect, begin with your habits. The one who conquers himself fears nothing, not war, not pain, not even death, because he has already faced the greatest enemy, his own weakness, and he chose not to kneel. Discipline is not born in moments of comfort or ease. It is forged in the fire of resistance to the seductive lull of pleasure, to the whispers of procrastination, to the deceptive language of excuses. The undisciplined man waits for motivation to arrive like a guest, expecting it to knock politely and escort him into greatness. But the disciplined man knows that motivation is fickle, a traitor dressed in enthusiasm. He does not rely on its presence, he moves without it. This is self-mastery. When the body is tired, when the mind is clouded, when the world screams for his attention, the disciplined man acts. He is unmoved. He obeys not his feelings, but his will, and this is what makes him dangerous. Most men are ruled by their impulses, their moods, their appetites. They are soft, not from lack of muscle, but from lack of command over themselves. They eat when they feel like it, they work when inspired, they rest without earning it. Their lives are governed by the lowest forces within them. But the man who has mastered discipline understands that feelings are not to be trusted. They are to be tamed. He does not ask himself, do I feel like doing this? He tells himself, I do it because it must be done. His identity is not built on how he feels, but on what he repeatedly does. There is no secret ritual, no hidden knowledge, no magic phrase. There is only repetition and ruthless self-direction. This is the foundation of all greatness. A man who can command himself can command nations. He does not chase freedom, he builds it, because freedom is not the absence of restraint. It is the ability to rule yourself. What use is liberty to a man who cannot resist his own urges? What power does a man have if he must wait to feel inspired? Before he moves, none. The disciplined man does not wait, he acts, and in his actions, he creates the conditions others can only dream about. This is not about asceticism, nor self-hatred, nor denial for the sake of denial. It is about sovereignty. It is about saying, I am the master here, and then proving it through action day after day, without applause, without reward, and especially without permission. It is the quiet, invisible war against one's lower nature, and it is a war that must be fought and won every morning, every hour, every choice. If you can understand this, if you can live by it, then no man can ever own you, no circumstance can ever break you. Because you have already done the hardest thing imaginable, you have conquered yourself, and from that throne no tyrant can unseat you. That is discipline, that is power, that is freedom, and that is how you become untouchable in a world drowning in weak men, waiting for the wind to carry them. Be the wind. Discipline without a clear and ruthless hierarchy of values is hollow. It becomes mechanical, robotic, even self-destructive. A man who wakes at dawn, trains his body, reads books, and builds routines may appear disciplined. But if he has not defined what truly matters, then he is only efficient at wasting his life. Niccolò Machiavelli would not praise a man simply for his ability to follow structure. He would demand to know why he does so, and to what end. Because discipline is not a virtue in itself. It is a weapon. And like any weapon, its worth depends on the target. To master discipline forever, you must first rank your values with precision, and then subordinate all actions to serve the highest one. That is strategy. Most men fail here. They confuse momentary goals with timeless principles. They hustle for wealth, for status, for fleeting praise from mediocre minds, believing that success lies in activity. But the disciplined man cuts deeper. He asks himself, what is the most important aim of my existence? And once that aim is discovered, not inherited from society, not borrowed from friends, not extracted from fear, he calibrates every part of his life to serve it. Lesser values are eliminated. Comfort is sacrificed. Even certain talents are neglected if they do not contribute to the supreme objective. This is not narrow-mindedness, it is focus. It is the kind of deliberate living that terrifies the average man because it exposes the chaos of his own. To build such a hierarchy, one must first face the uncomfortable truths of one's character. What am I really driven by vanity or purpose, approval or power, pleasure or meaning? This demands brutal honesty, the willingness to see through oneself, deceptions, and burn away the fluff. For the mind cannot serve two masters without collapse. You must choose. You must crown a single value as king, and all other priorities must kneel before it. This is not tyranny, this is order, and order is the soil in which disciplined action takes root. In Machiavellian terms, this is about establishing internal sovereignty. Just as a prince must consolidate power within his domain and eliminate disloyal factions, so too must you eliminate competing desires and conflicting ambitions from within. The undisciplined man is a divided kingdom, his energy scattered, his loyalty split, his purpose diluted. But the disciplined man is unified, all forces marching under one banner, his sleep, his habits, his work, his speech. They all serve one throne. And that throne is his chosen highest aim. Do not misunderstand, this is not a one-time decision. Life will constantly seduce you with distractions dressed as opportunities. Discipline means returning again and again to what matters most, refusing to be lured into the shallows. Every action, no matter how small, becomes either a step toward your kingdom or a betrayal of it. Choose wisely. A man who has mastered discipline and clarified his values becomes unstoppable, not because he does everything, but because he knows exactly what not to do. Discipline is sustained not through willpower alone, but through an intelligent understanding of one's own nature. The man who attempts to dominate himself by sheer force will eventually fall, because willpower is a finite resource. It can be exhausted, eroded, and bent under pressure. But the man who studies his patterns, who observes his weaknesses like a tactician studies his enemy, gains something far more enduring than brute control. He gains insight. He knows when he falters, why he falters, and how to intercept that failure before it begins. This is the psychology of strategy, and it is the heart of long-term discipline. Without self-awareness, discipline becomes punishment. With self-awareness, discipline becomes precision. To master yourself, you must learn to read yourself like a book whose pages are written in mood, energy, impulse, and fear. Every man has rhythms, cycles of strength and fatigue, windows of clarity and fog, hours when he is sharp and hours when he is dull. The disciplined man does not curse his biology, he maps it. He arranges his highest efforts during his hours of peak alertness, and he delegates low-focus tasks to periods of low energy. He builds his days like a fortress, each wall designed according to the terrain of his mind. He is not rigid, he is calculated. Furthermore, he becomes fluent in the language of his temptations. He does not pretend they don't exist. He studies them. He knows that in moments of fatigue he craves comfort, that under stress he seeks escape, that when alone he is vulnerable to indulgence. But this knowledge does not make him weaker. It makes him prepared. He sets traps for his lower self. He builds rituals that preempt sabotage. He removes easy access to vice. He transforms discipline into environment so that even when his will is weak, his system is strong. This man becomes like a strategist in war, outthinking rather than overpowering his internal opposition. He knows that his enemy is not the world, it is within, the lazy voice, the scared voice, the indulgent voice, and these voices cannot be silenced by yelling back. They must be outmaneuvered. The undisciplined man enters battle every day with no plan. He fights chaos with chaos and loses. The disciplined man enters the same battlefield with surveillance, intel, and weapons already drawn. He does not resist himself blindly. He anticipates and disarms. This is discipline by design. And finally, he accepts that failure will occur. The disciplined man is not perfect. He is adaptable. When he slips, he does not spiral into shame. He audits the failure, adjusts the variables, and moves forward, because his identity is not built on performance. It is built on alignment. He does not ask, "Did I succeed today?" but "Did I correct course quickly?" That is the difference. Discipline is not the absence of falling. It is the refusal to fall in the same place twice. This is the kind of mastery that builds unbreakable men, not rigid, but resilient. Not obsessed with control, but obsessed with understanding. That is how discipline becomes permanent, by becoming intelligent. Discipline is not sustained by comfort. It is forged in discomfort. The man who seeks to master discipline must rewire his relationship with pain, boredom, and resistance. Most people treat discomfort as a signal to stop, a warning sign that they are on the wrong path. But the disciplined mind understands discomfort as a compass it points to growth. There is no transformation in ease. There is only stagnation. To rise above mediocrity, one must be willing to embrace the discomfort that others flee from, to do what others refuse to do, and to tolerate what others find intolerable. It is here, in this crucible, that power is born. Those who live soft lives develop soft minds. They never test their limits, never wrestle with fatigue or doubt, and so they become prisoners of convenience. But Machiavelli knew that a prince, or any man who wished to rule, even just over himself, must be willing to live in contradiction with the crowd. While others seek pleasure, he must seek progress. While others choose the easier path, he must choose the necessary one. This willingness to suffer in pursuit of something greater is the hidden core of discipline, not just enduring pain, but selecting it deliberately, like a swordsmith placing metal into fire. Pain is the tuition for excellence. Boredom is the gatekeeper of mastery. Frustration is the teacher of clarity. All these unpleasant states, which undisciplined men avoid, are the very tools that shape the strong. The disciplined mind does not argue with difficulty. It welcomes it. It does not ask, "How can I escape this?" but "What is this teaching me?" Every moment of resistance becomes an opportunity to stretch beyond the ordinary, but there is more. Discomfort must not only be endured, it must be made familiar. The disciplined man trains in discomfort regularly, not merely when it is thrust upon him. He creates voluntary hardship, waking early, fasting, training, studying beyond fatigue. Why? Because he understands that voluntary suffering strengthens the will far more than reactive survival ever could. To face hardship by choice is to build immunity to chaos. When life inevitably brings stress, he is not shaken. He has rehearsed this. He does not complain. He does not ask for ease. He turns discomfort into identity. I am the man who finishes the run when tired. I am the man who keeps going when bored. I am the man who works while others distract themselves. This internal narrative hardens into character. Discipline becomes who he is, not just what he does. And so, the man who builds his mind around embracing discomfort becomes untouchable. He cannot be manipulated by ease or broken by strain. His enemies are confused by his stamina. His rivals are left behind by his consistency. While others fade when it gets hard, he sharpens, because the disciplined mind has made discomfort into fuel, and those who feed on pain cannot be defeated by it. Discipline dies in a chaotic environment. If your surroundings are cluttered, your time unstructured, your mind distracted by constant noise, then your willpower is drained before you've even begun. A disciplined life must be governed by structure, because structure is the skeleton that holds the body of discipline upright. Just as a state without laws descends into anarchy, a man without routine falls into decay. Machiavelli knew this well. Control, order, and predictability are not signs of weakness, but the foundation of strength. The man who cannot organize his day cannot organize his destiny. Routines are not prison cells, they are fortresses. They protect the mind from the tyranny of impulse. When you live without structure, every choice becomes a negotiation with weakness. Should I wake up early today? Should I work now or later? Should I read or scroll? Each decision becomes a battlefield, and most men lose because they come to the war unarmed. But when your routine is set, those choices are already made. You do not have to argue with your laziness because you never gave it a vote. You simply act as a soldier obeys command. The man of discipline does not rely on motivation. He relies on systems. A structured environment saves energy. Your mind becomes focused, your actions sharpened. You always know what comes next. You rise, you train, you read, you build. There is rhythm, and in this rhythm, greatness is forged. This is not rigidity, it is precision. You are not enslaved to your calendar, you are elevated by it. While others live in reaction, drifting between distractions, you act with intention. And over time, the compounded power of these small, repeated choices becomes something immense, something terrifying to those who lack it. Structure also kills resistance. Procrastination feeds on ambiguity. But when your schedule is clear, there is no space for excuses to grow. You don't say, "I'll do it later." You say, "It's 6:00. This is what I do at 6:00. Discipline is no longer an effort. It becomes a fact. And once you reach this level, you become efficient beyond comprehension. Others will marvel at how much you produce, how calmly you advance, how ruthlessly you execute. But they do not see the architecture behind your strength. They do not see the invisible empire of order that supports your mind. And this is why the disciplined man builds systems, not moods. He does not hope for a good day. He designs one. He does not wait to feel inspired. He begins the work. And in doing so, he frees himself from the chaos that enslaves weaker minds. Structure is not limitation. It is liberation. For the man who controls his time controls his life, and the man who controls his life is feared by those who are ruled by theirs. Most people crave validation. They seek applause before they've earned mastery. They want to be seen working hard, admired for their ambition, praised for their sacrifices. But the man who truly wishes to master discipline must reject this temptation. He must become invisible. He must fall in love with the silent grind, the private battle, the unnoticed effort. Because true discipline is not performance, it is devotion. You are not doing this for attention, you are doing this to become untouchable. The strongest growth happens in the shadows, where no one is watching, where no applause is given, and where no praise is expected. To be disciplined, you must learn to detach your actions from outcome and your efforts from approval. The work must become its own reward. If you need someone to witness your consistency in order to maintain it, then your will is not your own. It belongs to your audience. Machiavelli would scoff at such weakness. A ruler does not ask for validation while consolidating power. He acts in silence, in secrecy, in solitude, until his strength becomes undeniable, and so must you. You must become indifferent to recognition. Let others sleep, celebrate, and show off. You work. There is power in the unseen. When you train without telling anyone, when you read without posting quotes, when you suffer in silence and emerge stronger, you become a different kind of threat. You build a mind that needs nothing but purpose. You eliminate dependence on praise. You begin to move like a shadow, silent, disciplined, and lethal. People notice something is different, but they don't understand what. You've trained in the dark. They only see the results. This invisible discipline also inoculates you from the chaos of comparison. You are no longer measuring your progress against others. You are too focused on your mission. While others waste energy seeking approval, you conserve it for creation. You become immune to trends, distractions, and status games. Your attention is your own, and that is the rarest form of power in a world addicted to noise. There is also psychological strength in secrecy. When no one knows your plans, no one can interfere with them. When no one knows your goals, no one can sabotage them. Your silence protects you, and in that silence, you go further, faster. The world sees nothing until it sees everything. One day, you will emerge with skills, with results, with power, but until then, remain unseen, remain underestimated, use their ignorance as camouflage. Because the disciplined man does not announce his transformation. He does not seek congratulations. He sharpens his mind like a dagger in the dark, and when the time comes, he strikes with precision. Let others broadcast their every step. You vanish into your purpose. You become the ghost in the room, the quiet one, the focused one, the one no one watched, until it was too late. Discipline without endurance is a sword made of glass, sharp for a moment, but destined to shatter under pressure. Anyone can be disciplined for a day, perhaps even a week. But true discipline is not a burst of motivation. It is an unrelenting force that outlasts fatigue, boredom, failure, and time itself. This is where most men fall. They begin with fire in their hearts, but no fuel in their minds. Their vision is grand, but their patience is brittle. And so, when resistance appears, as it always does, they collapse. But the man who builds endurance alongside discipline becomes unstoppable, because he understands that greatness is not speed, but stamina. Machiavelli taught that time is the ultimate battleground of power. The prince who endures, who can delay gratification longer than others, eventually inherits what the impulsive and short-sighted lose. Likewise, the man who trains his mind to return to the task every single day, regardless of feeling or failure, becomes dangerous. Not because he is better than others, but because he simply doesn't stop. He survives, and in survival he surpasses. The disciplined mind does not peak quickly. It rises slowly, steadily, until it towers above those who once laughed at its silence. Endurance means embracing monotony. It means waking up to the same grind again and again, with no promise of reward, no applause, and often no visible progress. It is in this repetition, this dull, invisible war, that most men quit. They believe discomfort is a sign to stop. But the disciplined man sees it as a test. When the path becomes boring, painful, or unclear, he leans in, because he knows this is where the rest break. And if the rest break here, he advances here. That is the logic of dominance. gaining inches in moments others retreat. You must also understand that endurance is not just physical, it is deeply psychological. The ability to carry a heavy vision across a long desert of discouragement requires a mental armor most never forge. The doubts will come, the failures will mount, the isolation will grow, but the man of discipline is unmoved. He may stumble, but he returns. He may doubt, but he does not stop. This return, this constant return, is the secret. Every day he rises again, and with each return he becomes harder to defeat. In a world that glorifies instant results and overnight success, endurance is rebellion. It is the quiet refusal to rush, to quit, to bend. And in this rebellion, power is born. You do not need to be the most talented. You do not need to be the most gifted. You simply need to outlast, to show up long after others have disappeared, to continue the work when it no longer excites you, to remain when most would run, because the man who endures is the man who finishes, and in the end that is what matters, not how loudly you began, but how long you endured. The world forgets the starters. It remembers the finishers. So build a mind that returns, that survives, that cannot be killed by fatigue, boredom, or failure. That is discipline, unbreakable, unstoppable, eternal.